Making films is hard and I'm not perfect at it, but I have been doing it since I was 11, so these are my top 5 tips for how to make a good short film. And the first tip is number 5, music. Do it right. What does this mean? Music plays such an important role in films. If there's only 2 things you know about Jaws, it's probably these 2 notes. Or think Star Wars. You can watch the whole thing and basically know what's happening just by listening to the soundtrack. So music's really important, but unless you're friends with John Williams, it's probably going to be fairly difficult to get a really good score written yourself. So how can you do it? Well, I think there's 2 good ways. One, pay for a music licensing software, which will actually get you good, high quality music. But if you don't want to spend money, that's totally fine. Download some royalty-free music, but then instead of just putting the royalty-free track straight into your timeline, cut it up a bit, rearrange some things, actually try to make it sound like it was written for your film. Just a little bit extra effort here can go a long way. Or, extra option, if you want to sound like you have a big orchestral movie theme, then go find some classical music that's in the public domain. Basically, all classical music is in the public domain, so this shouldn't be too hard. And then pick something that's a little bit more obscure. If you pick something that's a bit more obscure, and then chop it up like we did with the other music, you can get what sounds like a pretty good orchestral score completely for free. Constraints are good. What does this mean? If you know that you only have 2 actors, don't write a film with 7 different main characters. I know it can seem frustrating to contain your ideas because you have so many big ideas and you want to do all these crazy things, but constraining yourself actually can make it easier to think of ideas. When you've just got infinite possibilities, then it can be hard to whittle it down to your one story. So, instead of just going with anything and then coming up with a story that's impossible for you to make, think about what you can feasibly do and then write a story that fits into that. It'll make it easier to write the story and make it easier to actually film in the process. I know this. I needed to shoot a film recently in just like 2 weeks and I only had a few actors and not many set options, so I wrote the story to that situation. Made it easier to write the story and easier to film, and I got the film done. So remember, give yourself constraints. They're good. Next tip. Oh. I'm sending pins everywhere. Sound is 51%. I made a video about this a while ago, and it talked about how sound is actually more important than visuals in film, and I think it is one of the most important things to realise. Obviously, I've already talked about music, but now you can take it a step further. Instead of just stopping at music and dialogue and maybe some sound effects, you can add tons of layers on top of that to make the sound even more interesting. Add ambience or wind or rustling leaves or people talking in the background or rooms or, rises and hits and whatnot. Go full Hans Zimmer if you like. This makes a film so much more engaging to watch and so much more exciting whilst you're watching it. Boring footage can be made so interesting with sound, and epic footage can be made really boring if the sound design's bad. I say sound is 51% of a film just to sound interesting, but really it's probably more like 80%. And it's free. You can find tons of free sound effects, download them, put them in, spend a bit of time, and you can make something that sounds so much better. I'm actually working on a video at the moment about how I do this, so look out for that and subscribe so that you won't miss it. Moving on. Plan what you shoot. This one sounds really obvious. Of course I'm going to plan what I'm going to shoot. But I actually don't mean it quite like that. Let's look at Jaws. In Jaws, they were needing to make a whole movie about a shark, but CGI didn't really exist then, and making a realistic looking shark was going to be impossible like that. So they had to make their big animatronic shark, and famously, it did not work very well. They ran into a lot of problems with it. So, what do? Well, you could just say, oh well, we can't make that film. Or you could be smart about it. The shark in Jaws only appears for less than 5 minutes of the whole film. So, by being careful about what elements you show of something, you can actually still have that thing in the film. I was making a film recently where I needed a scene set in an antique shop, and I knew that I wasn't able to actually go film in a real antique shop, and I didn't have time to build a proper full antique shop set. So, what did I do? I planned very specifically to have the whole scene with the dialogue and the talking and the important bits set in just one little corner. So then I made one little corner of a set and filmed everything there. But that's obviously not super immersive in what could be an awesome cluttered antique shop. So I planned to have an establishing shot where I locked off the camera on a tripod, and then I made a little bit of a set and did the rest with visual effects. Because I'd planned that in advance, it meant I had to do 1 frame of rendering, 1 frame of rotoscoping, and that got me about 4 good establishing shots, which I interspersed throughout the scene to make what had been a really tiny antique shop set feel so much bigger. Planning what you're going to show in advance makes it infinitely easier to make something complex. And now, for the final tip of the video, my number 1 tip for making short films is film. Obviously, you can follow all these tips on this list and your films will probably improve a ton. But the fact is, the only way to actually get better at filmmaking is to keep on doing it. You can't improve at something without doing it over and over again. So keep filmmaking, keep making your films, and see just how good you can become. And subscribe to Benson Studios, because that helps too. See you in the next one.